some parents and they say, well, I'm going to homeschool, or I have them in private school, but I don't know, how does that work?
I homeschool our 3 kids, and I am very concerned about this because it will affect them. It doesn't affect them as of yet, but the testing is going to be aligned to the Common Core standards. And if I refuse to use curriculum that aligns with the standards, then my kids aren't going to know what's on the test and they're going to fail it. And I refuse to use Common Core aligned curriculum. So I don't know what I'm going to do at this point, but it does affect homeschoolers as well as private schools and charters. So there is no escaping. There are people on Facebook say, oh, just homeschool, you know, you can take them out of school. It's like, there's no escaping. We have to fight this and we have to win.
And just adding to that, something vitally important is homeschooling is wonderful. I mean, I know some of the most intelligent young people that have been homeschooled, but 89%, approximately 89% of America's children attend public schools. Why are they being targeted? That's 89% of the future vote. Yeah. So we cannot leave those children and just homeschool. That's not a solution. Right. It's an opportunity for some, but it's not a solution. We've got to save our children in our schools nationwide.
That's right.
I can't hear homeschooling.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry, area.
Where I'm from, I was talking to some parents today who are totally clueless, and obviously, I mean, we are totally clueless, and the teachers sound like they don't know much about it. But based on your research, can you give us some more specifics? I mean, I understand that I trust you, that it's not good. Can you offer some more specifics as to what the content of some of the points of the content of the curriculum?
Okay, this is what I do know. I know that they don't pick the subjects for me for the reading. So this is how it's been presented to me. As an English teacher, I have to have my students read multiple things. They watch some videos, all of them on the same topic. Then they discuss it as a group. Then they write a paper about the subject. I don't know what the prompts are, so is this good or bad? I do know that they're all supposed to be writing on the same subject, and they're all supposed to pretty much agree. So let's do a little thought process here. Let's take what I presented earlier this evening, gun control. You watch a video about gun control, you read 2 or 3 articles, hopefully showing multiple perspectives about gun control, and then the kids talk about gun control, and then they write the paper that says, I think gun control should do X, Y, or Z. Remember, they're supposed to have consensus. They're all supposed to agree. And the paper is not scored by Mrs. Lowell. The paper is supposed to, and I don't know how this is supposed to work, scored by computer.
Yeah.
A, I don't think we have a computer that works that well. And B, how does a computer know unless it's looking for key specific phrases? It's looking for the right answers in a child's writing. That is all I know. And that is why it's alarming. I get to pick the subject, gun control. I would never pick that for middle school, by the way. That's horrifying. Something easy. This last 2 weeks ago, I picked the subject of narcissism. Narcissism being stuck up. And how it, you should be careful. It was quite controversial. Everybody pretty much agreed that, yeah, we're getting more narcissistic. We even took one of Dr. Drew's surveys and found out, yeah, we're pretty narcissistic. And then we looked at the results of the 1970 through 1999 results on those narcissism tests. And yes, we're becoming more narcissistic. But the opening question was, why and how do we cure it? The consensus one of my 4 classes came to was, it doesn't need to be cured. I don't care that I'm more stuck up and more mean than others. And they wrote their paper to that. I don't have control over where the consensus goes, nor should I. But I would really like to see my kids be independent thinkers.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. How do we assess this? If you want to know there's two different assessment programs that are being investigated. Washington State has bought into PALS. Is it PAL? I'm pause. It starts with a P. I don't know what it stands for. Oregon has bought the program called Smarter Balance. This is the computer program that PARC. That's what it is. PARC. Oregon has bought Smarter Balance. That's the program that is supposed to allow our kids to go into the computer lab and type this paper that is going to be scored by a computer. First of all, I work in Malala, way out there. We have 3 computer labs with about 30 computers that work. We have 500 kids, none of whom can type. We have stopped typing classes. They no longer teach typing, just like they no longer teach spelling or penmanship. If you haven't noticed, it's bad. So they have to write this paper, and it's timed. They have 90 minutes to write and type a 5-paragraph essay. How many of you could do that? Tom could. Tom could. Yes, he could. Not and suck up to whatever the computer particularly wants. To me, that is flaws in design, not in motive. I have no doubt that their motives are bad, but I will tell you right now, it's going to take God to score these papers, not a computer. Okay? Mrs. Lowell sometimes can score these papers and be objective because I have been trained to try. But I have given papers back to a kid and said, I don't read rated R papers. I've said that to him. You can take it down to at least PG-13. You're 13 years old, you can do that. I will not read blood, guts, and gore just for blood, guts, and gore's sake. But I get to pick the subject, but later on, when they're doing the actual test, the subject is going to be picked by the state, I think. I don't get to pick what the subject is. And that's just language arts. That doesn't talk about math story problems. That doesn't talk about social studies, what is important in history, what is important in science. Okay? Language arts, I went into language arts because it was freer, and that's all I know. It's enough to scare me. Okay? Maybe I'll come back here in 2 years after I've been, quote, trained on this, and maybe I'll be a little more knowledgeable. But that's what I know at this point about how it's being implemented.
I just wanted to add, in regard to what's wrong with it, how many of you heard about the data collection part? Exactly. In other words, where is our children's privacy? When you went to school and you were working and you were doing your independent work, you weren't having data collected on you for a business or for a government agency that could be shared and could be shared with anybody. You know, whether it's your health issues or have you been in trouble or what have you. And that kind of data tracking pigeonholes children. You know, it just pigeonholes them. And, you know, besides that, it's a tremendous affront to personal freedom. Independence and personal freedom. What are we doing? We can't just let this go. That's one of the biggest points beyond the money is the data tracking of these kids. And the teachers have to teach the test or they can lose their jobs if they don't do it. And the other point, again, it's nationalizing public education. It's taking away states' rights. And when you look at what's wrong with Common Core, there's multiple articles out there. You can do a Google search and find out about In Bloom, which is the data search company. Something else I would recommend if you want to understand education for sustainability is this book, because it is a documented agenda of the Education for Sustainability movement. It's called Training for Treason, because trust me, the agenda of Education for Sustainability is not the American way in any way, shape, or form.
All right, this side over here.
When I first heard about Common Core, I went down to the local school board and talked to them about it. I looked at some of the literature or some of their actual school books, and I was talking to the guy there, the head of the thing, and I says, "How do we get Common Core out of the system?" And he says, "Well, you know, we get a lot of money for this. You're not going to get it now. And how do we fight the big money of it? That's the problem right there, is the money. Get into the federal government. I hope somebody does."
House bill out there that, I have to hold this. Closer right here, okay. House Bill 3233A. The OEIB is asking for a bunch of money, like 2% of the school's funds to support their administrative costs, and they're the ones that are driving the Common Core. So if you could call, write for your legislators, make sure that they're not going to pass this bill. We don't want to read up on House Bill 3233A and tell them that you don't want this. This is taking money away from the classrooms. If we just, verbalize our dislike for this particular bill, which funds them, we can stop the funding, and maybe we can stop this tracks. You don't want to quit?
Okay, this side of the room over here.
In April, I found out was reading on the internet and about the Common Core, and I sent information to some of our legislators. Only one answered me back, and that was about 3 weeks later, but he has been putting me in touch with places on the internet to go. These problems that we're having in our schools goes back to parents being very busy. It goes back to parents not going into the schools and checking and seeing what is being taught. And I was on school board. I was an employee in Philomath in the school, and I knew what was going on with my children. And if things were going on with my kids and they didn't let me know, they knew when I was walking in that door. And I told them then, these children were given to us by God. They weren't given to Oregon to train them. They weren't given to the teachers. They were ours, and I would know what was going on with my children. I have spent a lot of time in the schools over the years, going and seeing what is going on. And we have to be cognizant of what is taking place. We need to have parents right now going into the schools and being upset about this. I called our high school principal just the other day, and I called our superintendent, and I said, what in the world is this? And I talked to the principal, and he said, Stella, I said, do we have Common Core in Oregon? He said, oh yeah, it's here alive and well. And I said, but why can't we stop it? He said, if we do not adhere to this, we do not get any funding from the state. None. Absolutely none. We cannot be held. We can't allow them to hold us to that. I keep reminding people and kids that they need to understand, the government needs to understand that we, the people, are their employers. And they need to start listening to us. But we need to show up. Unless you go and talk to them, unless we have a group. We should have parents up there at the state capitol just absolutely screaming and yelling with signs out in front and saying no.
I don't think Jim's question got answered last time, so.
Well, she kind of addressed some of it.
Okay.
The cost. How do we fight it with the costs and stuff? They're attacking it.
I just wanted to, there's another bill just along with what the lady was saying, and that's SB 632, and it directs the Department of Education to expend up to $3 million from the state school fund to assist school districts in complying with core teaching standards. There's another one that needs, it's still in committee, it's not out of committee, but that's another one that needs to be addressed, and don't get it out of committee. But one of the most important ways that we can, as parents and citizens, address this is to understand one very important thing. This is a political movement. This is not an educational movement. This is a political movement, and it's to take over public education as we know it and use the curriculum for something different. And if we go in there with facts and we go in respectfully and responsibly and we deal with this as a political issue, there's no real benefit to our children from an educational standpoint. We need to deal with this as a political issue, and you're not supposed to be using public education to advance single-party rule or any other political agenda forced on our children. and that's what we need to address. That's a key point. Thank you.
Over here.
I wanted to address this lady's question over here. I think that a lot of parents are responsible and they are going into their schools and they know what's happening with their kids, but this has been so secret and so stealthy that nobody knows about it. I mean, even the teachers don't even have the curriculum yet. So I don't think it's a problem of the parents don't know what's going on. I think it's a problem that none of us know what's going on because the government has sneaked this in so carefully and so adeptly. So now that we know, we can be spreading that awareness and we can be going into our schools and saying, this is wrong, or we don't want this is dangerous, we need to get this out.
And if it was so good, how come we all don't know about it?
Hey, okay.
Yeah, I got a question. Until the 90s, I managed to pen out a bunch of this stuff when my kids were in school, and I had some success on just an independent basis, individual for the kids. But this is kind of growing out of proportion here. And what's your opinion of the best place to attack this first, at the school level or at the legislative level?
Well, two things. Tack it on the local level or the legislative level, local or national. I know Senator Grassley, a Republican from Iowa, has circulated a letter to, how many of you are aware of that? And I won't go for, okay, just very quickly, he's circulated a letter to hold and I can't think of the right name of the committee right now, but not to fund this further and give states back their rights. Ways and Means. Ways and Means, yes, thank you. And so that is a terrific move on the national level. Again, on the local and state level, organizing to go down with a set of specific concerns to a school board, definitely on the state level. And again, I definitely think we should be talking to our governor about this and asking him to sign off of what he signed on to. And if we don't have enough money to teach our children the basics, then we certainly should not be spending more money to implement this program that this state cannot afford. And the bottom line also on that is there may be stimulus money up front, but correct me if I'm wrong, the states hold the bag as soon as that stimulus money is gone. We can't afford it. We can't afford it financially. We can't afford the experiment, and it's time to get this political program out of our school. It opens the door to nationalizing public education, and I think we need to lay this right at the feet at Governor Kitzhaber, who signed on to it.
Yeah.
Over here, on this side.
I would like to say that Jimmy Carter's Department of Education, that was unconstitutional right there.
Absolutely.
And I was in the schools working in 1970 in the public schools. And that's when all this new curriculum and sex education and all this stuff is targeting kids to destroy virtue in our kids. And if you guys have studied education, the purpose of classical education since Socrates has been to promote virtue in children. Virtue is wisdom. Virtue is what makes civil societies. When you don't have virtuous people, everything is chaos. And the cultural Marxists came in the 1930s, and that's when John Dewey, got control of the curriculum. And then he kicked out the McGuffey readers, the classical education, which teaches good and evil, it teaches right and wrong, and the basics. And my question is that, are you aware of like B.K. Eekman and Charlotte Isenberg, John Taylor Gatto? They all wrote things in the 1990s to say that this has been going on for decades. This Common Core is just the pinnacle. That is just the peak of what they've been doing. So I was wondering if you were aware of that.
Yes, I've studied a little bit about that, and John Taylor Gatto has a really excellent book called The Underground History. Oh, sorry, can you hear better now? Sorry. The Underground History of American Education. It's a very long book, and he has a really great vocabulary, so you have to read it with a dictionary in hand, but it's a really great book that will explain the plan that has been set in place for American education from quite a while ago.
Absolutely, and as I said, I started my research into this in the late 80s, early 90s. The first book I wrote, Set Up and Sold Out, which really fits what's happening today, is also talking about how this was planned long term. And one of the things I think that's important to understand right now is that when you look at the nationalization of public education, and allow me to be redundant for one moment, and opening the door to like a communist country using our school system, politicize our school system to indoctrinate our children. One of the things that's important, a former FBI agent, you probably, most of you know him, Cleon Skousen, have you heard of him? Okay, in 1963, 45 goals of the Communist Party were entered into the congressional record by this former FBI agent, and that was his study area, which was communism. And let me just read this quickly. Number 17 from that list was, get control of the schools. These are the Communist Party goals in 1963. Number 17, get control of the schools. Use them as transformation belts for socialism and current communist propaganda. Soften the curriculum. Get control of teachers' associations. Put the party line in the textbooks. Hello? Okay, number 41, and this is the last one. Emphasize the need to raise children away from the negative influence of their parents. Attribute prejudices, mental blocks, and retardation of children to suppressive influence of parents. Yeah. This was, laid out. And you know that movie, While We Were Sleeping? Or While You Were Sleeping? The point is we weren't paying attention because it's not that we're stupid, it's we've been too trusting. That's right. And now we've got to catch up, and we've got to catch up quick. And just like I'm sure most of you heard about the MSNBC quote from Harriet Perry. Yeah, Melissa Harriet Perry, yes. And that just goes right in glove. I know if you haven't studied the Greens, but one of the Green Party statements that goes right along with this is this. This is from the Green Party platform 2004, and you might not be aware of this. Youth rights. We must ensure they have an upbringing that allows them to take their place as functioning, productive, self-actualized members of their community. Sounds like what Melissa said. And youth are not the property of their parents or guardians, but just are under their care and guidance. So we are seeing the advancement of a political agenda in our schools by a political movement. And there's no question, and again, with my research, that the agenda of the Green Movement, Green Party are one and the same. It mirrors communism, and this is how it all aligns. And if we connect the dots, I believe we can help our teachers, our administrators, our political leaders, and most of all, our children get past this and return our schools to a quality basic education.
I want to add that, frankly, yes, a lot of teachers are politically inclined towards the progressive end. But I do not know a single teacher, and I teach with a lot of them, that wants to implement Common Core. They would much rather stick with what has worked so far, define work though, but they don't want to have to change. The pendulum thing, I've got one teacher who's quitting because she's so tired of not another program. So if you know teachers, talk to them. Spread the news through them. They're not conditioned to think, gee, the government is running our lives and going to take over. They might be on your side. It's one way you can talk to a less than conservative teacher.
We're all Americans first.
Do we have any on this side, or are we still over here? I think we're on this. Go ahead, over here.
I understand that Common Core includes an observer in every classroom. Is that true? And if so, could you comment on that, please?
I'm not sure.
You haven't heard that?
No, I haven't heard that
I heard
yet.
that from multiple sources over the last several days.
It could be one of those surprise.
Maybe that's where this money is going.
Possibly to make sure the teachers are actually following the curriculum.
That's what I heard, yes.
I haven't heard that.
Decide. Rodney?
Okay. What I'm going to recommend, I know everybody here is looking for an action plan. I want you to go see the movie No. It's playing at the Broadway Theater. When you come out of that movie, you will have an answer to your question. And what we've done today, that we, Denny Smith and and our small group have done is we've put together a website called Tell Them No. And you'll understand what that means after you see the movie No.
Over here.
Earlier, there was a question about some specifics, and on the OEA website, or the State of Oregon Department of Education website, most school districts will have links to it regarding Common Core curriculum and information for parents, so it's readily available and easy to find and print out and show your teachers. But some of the standards are 1 through 6th grade, 50% literature, 50% technical advanced instruction. What they have listed as curriculum options are legislation and tax codes, ordinances, installation level information, Federal Reserve text. That's what they're going to teach 1 through 6th graders how to read. How much love of reading will that inspire?
And
inspire a love of learning and curiosity.
And as they get into the higher grades, that switches to 15% classic literature and 85% informational texts, such as riveting things like insulation, installation, and the Federal Reserve newsletter. So that's, it's really going to inspire a love of reading, and it will just serve as a further way to indoctrinate our children.
And just another point on that is to remember, in a Soviet system, the children are assessed at a very young age, and if they're good at this or good at that or good at this, do they get a choice, or are they pushed in one direction or the other? That is also part of Common Core. It includes that same kind of A component. That's unfair to our children, absolutely unfair. And something I'll just take a quick opportunity to say, and this goes along with what Rodney was saying, and that is, again, what we can do about it. And we are in the process through Training for Treason, which of course is aligned in the Education for Sustainability agenda as far as nationalizing public education is directly right there. What we're doing on a local, a state, and a national level is uniting communities, uniting people behind the information in Training for Treason to be able to go down to their school boards, and again, in a respectful, and to their legislators, in a respectful but very responsible way with the documentation behind them, because if you don't have documentation, it's hearsay. Right. And we need the facts. And so that's one of the things that we're doing, is organizing not only throughout Oregon but nationally to give people the facts. And Education for Sustainability and Common Core, they are part of the same political push. So that's, here you go.
I have something to add to that. There is also a Facebook group that is nationwide called Parents and Educators Against Common Core Standards. And there's like 3,700 people on it right now. And you can go there, and they have files of the actual documentation that you can download and print out from the state websites and all of that. There's a link to all of the states that are fighting, and it's Parents and Educators Against Common Core Standards. No, you can go to PEACCS.com. That's their website. The name that I mentioned before is the Facebook group. And there are thousands of people on there that you can ask your questions to. It's been absolutely invaluable.